Well, there's a good chance that when the Winnipeg Jets host their alumni game this coming October, I am going to bawl my friggin' eyes out.
Your Locked On Jets, your daily podcast on the Winnipeg Jets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey friends, and welcome to tonight's episode of Locked On Winnipeg Jets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Harrison Lee, an avid Winnipeg Jets fan and an online blogger. You can follow me on Twitter at HLivingLoco and at LO_Winnipeg Jets. Tonight's show, we have a lot to chat about. The Jets just beat the Blues yesterday, but more importantly, obviously the game is fine, right? But the most craziest thing happened, and the Jets have announced an alumni game with a lot of the early Jets 2.0 franchise legends. I am so excited. I am so hyped about this. In a season where the Jets have really not given us a lot to be excited about, this is legitimately something that I think for a lot of us is going to be a super emotional game. It's super exciting, and it'll pre-open and prepare us for the wonderful Heritage Classic that will be occurring on the 25th. So this is dope, man. And I want to walk through all of that, as well as chatting a little bit about the next few weeks for the Jets towards the end of this episode. Winnipeg has a very critical early February and end of January stretch here that's really going to determine what the Jets do after the Olympic break. But before we do, of course, the Jets had a big game announced, and this is going to be a really fun thing. The alumni game has unveiled their official early roster. This game will take place on Saturday, October 24th, inside at Canada Life Center before they move outdoors for the Heritage Classic at Princess Auto Stadium. This is fantastic news, man. Listen, right? We all have had some tough goes of it this season. A lot of folks have been arguing back and forth in the comment sections over what the Jets have done and the mistakes that they've made. We've all had disagreements. This is probably one of the few things I think every single Jets fan can agree on as being objectively one of the coolest, dopest moments ever. A lot of the Jets 2.0 guys are coming back, and on the Jets side, we have Dustin Byfuglien, Andrew Ladd, Brian Little, Matthew Perreault, Paul Stastny, Chris Thorburn, and Blake Wheeler wearing the C returning. They'll be playing the Montreal Canadiens as, of course, the Heritage Classic as well. So on the Habs side, they'll have Patrice Brisebois, Paul Byron, David Desharnais, Mike Keane, David Savard, and Dale Weiss. But we don't care about those guys, right? We care about the Jets. And more importantly, and I think this is one of the most exciting things, Dustin Byfuglien coming back in a Winnipeg Jets uniform. All these other guys are fantastic, but they all had mostly better departures from the Jets than Byfuglien did. Byfuglien just stopped playing one day. It was an awkward separation. There was a lot of radio silence, and then you saw him on a fishing boat the next time. So how Byfuglien kind of ended things did not go super well. And a lot of us have been waiting for a proper farewell, a chance to say goodbye to one of the defining players of this franchise's early history and into some of their best seasons when they were really campaigning for a cup. Buff, for me, is probably one of my all-time favorite hockey players. I've watched a lot of guys play this sport, and few just had the magnetism, the on-ice charisma, the personality, the physicality, and the incredible fun offense that Byfuglien brought in a position that, to this date, I don't think we've ever seen somebody play the way he did. He truly was a one-of-one force. And when you think about then getting Andrew Ladd, our former captain, and Brian Little, one of the most underrated centers in Jets history, back into the fold, you bring back some of the legends like Matthew Perreault, who was a really big part of why the Jets depth players and middle six worked so well during the Cup run years. Paul Stastny, one of the biggest surprise trades that really moved the needle and got us so close to glory. Chris Thorburn, one of the most hard-nosed fan favorite players that everyone remembers, and certainly a longtime Thrashers guy. And of course, the Wheeler, return, right? A lot of these guys have, kind of popped in and out of Winnipeg, occasionally sending videos. Byfuglien, the past year or two has seemingly been on the mend with the Jets organization. I don't know what happened leading up to his so-called silent retirement, but it seems like he is finally back and ready to, make a public appearance for the Jets outside of just videos. That's really fun. Wheeler coming back, really fun. I know a lot of folks have mixed feelings on the captain's departure before he left for New York. Obviously, I have some of those same feelings. There are parts of me that do still feel frustrated with how he managed things towards the end of his tenure as a Jet. But at the end of the day, he should still be very fondly remembered by fans for the great plays and prime years that he gave to the Jets. And they were some really friggin' fantastic years. This game, honestly, is probably one of the most exciting things I could think of. Obviously, the Heritage Classic is going to be phenomenal, right? I'm planning to fly up for it. I'm really excited. Weather permitting, I want to be there in the stadium. I want to see it. But now that they have this also being announced, I have to be in the rink for that. I mean, I think every Jets fan that remembers these guys and loves these guys wants to be in Canada Life for this moment. Perhaps even more in some ways than Princess Life or Princess Auto Stadium, right? The Heritage Classic, that's awesome. Going to be a fantastic spectacle. But for so many of us, this core group of guys that carried the Jets through some of the earliest season struggles, some of the earliest franchise struggles, into their first playoff appearance, and into eventually turning this team into a real cup contender and one of the best teams to just barely miss winning it all. It's too good to pass up, man. This is going to be a trip down memory lane. This is a great nostalgia play. And you know what? I'm going to get, you got to tip your hat to the Jets for this one. Great idea. I'm excited about this. And I just think that of all the things you could announce, this potentially could make fans really excited about the upcoming season. Next year is going to be very interesting. We might have a lottery pick. We might have a totally different looking team with a lot of departures and perhaps new arrivals. This Jets squad has the potential to be not only a lot better, but a lot more fun. And then you layer on some of these nostalgia plays. You want to take it back to the team that truly put Winnipeg on the map first with this 2.0 franchise era. This could be a fantastic event. And I think, this could be so much fun. And it'll give fans something to really look forward to. This year hasn't been that great. Very few wins, not a lot to look forward to except for like a major draft pick, especially after such a big President's Trophy season. You follow it up with this. Well, you know what? I think we can stomach some of the pain a little bit more to get towards the future and something more exciting. Would love to hear how you're thinking about this game. Are you super excited? I know personally I am. I can't wait to see the boys back. This feels like a moment where when they step out on the ice, a lot of us are going to be bawling. Somebody's going to be cutting onions. I'm sure I'm going to be a victim of the onion cutting. It's felt like so long since we saw these dudes suit up. And you really think about it, and for some guys, it's only been a few years. But time in the NHL doesn't work the way it does elsewhere. So when we see Byfuglien come out, when we see Ladd, Little, Perreault, Stastny, Thorbs, and Wheeler step back out on the ice, I can't wait, man. This is going to be so awesome. And I hope that you'll be able to join all of us in saying hello back to our old friends and wishing a warm return to some of these former Winnipeg Jets greats. Let me know how you're feeling about this game, though. Are you excited? Are you planning to get tickets as soon as you can? Let me know in the YouTube comment section below or at Twitter. As we're sort of talking about the good vibes, the Jets did just beat the St. Louis Blues last night. Eric Comrie putting up a pretty surprisingly good performance after, a stretch heading into this recent slate of games where he was dealing with confidence issues, mental health issues, and it's just good to see him get back in the win column. And for the Jets, I'm sure they feel nice to come on, the second half of the back-to-back and come away with a victory. We'll chat about what happened in this game coming right up. If you've ever hired somebody who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how damaging that can be. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. If I was looking to, bring in somebody, this is the best way to do it. I've used Indeed myself when I was looking for work several years ago. Their resume builder's comprehensive, convenient, and it matched me instantly with plenty of job openings that not only fit my work experience and some of my skill sets, but also some of my own salary requirements. This was fantastic. It was convenient, lightning fast, and for anyone looking to hire fantastic employees, Indeed wants to help you do it even better. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. Welcome back, friends, to this episode of Locked On Winnipeg Jets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for rejoining us as we're just chatting a little bit of a Tank Bowl recap. The Jets played the Blues yesterday evening, the second half of a back-to-back after a shutout against the Blackhawks, and unfortunately it was the Jets that were shut out. Winnipeg was probably looking for some kind of a response. In and of itself, I don't think a one-game win really changes a lot. But just for, I think, the team itself, they were probably looking for some sort of good vibe, right? If anyone came away from this game with a particularly good vibe, it was probably Eric Comrie. Made 22 saves on 23 attempts. This is his second win in as many attempts after several games where he just got absolutely shellacked and really looked not like the Comrie that we're used to. This was a real confidence booster because the team in front of him, frankly, didn't play a lot of the game. And it's not like the Jets really had to be honest. The Blues are genuinely one of the worst NHL teams I've watched this season. I don't know what they were out there doing for about 30 or 40 minutes, but it was not NHL caliber hockey. And Winnipeg had an early advantage with a 4-minute power play. They struck twice, made the Blues pay immediately. And then for most of the game, back and forth, you really just saw St. Louis funneling chance after chance after chance into Jets skates. And Winnipeg just kind of out there, right? Like Winnipeg created a couple of opportunities, maybe a couple of looks here and there, but it was a really low event game from the Jets. This was, quite frankly, a battle between two very bad teams, and I don't think that there's really any other way to describe it. Once, the top players, Scheifele getting a couple of points, a couple of goals and an assist, Morrissey recording 3 points, and Connor getting a couple of assists. Beyond that, not really anyone else doing a ton other than, lots of defensive work from guys like Perfetti and Velarde. This was a game that I would say was not Winnipeg's finest hour, which, second half of the back-to-back, you'd probably expect something like that. But despite not playing particularly well, the Blues played even worse. Their puck management was awful. They could not get shots on goal until the third period, really. They just did not look like a competent NHL team. And it's rare when I watch an opponent get high-danger chances against the Jets, which, the Blues really didn't create that many. The few that they did, though, I really didn't worry about them scoring. I had no concerns that St. Louis was really that much of a serious threat. I did wonder if the Jets might blow the lead because they were only up 2-1 towards the end of the game before the empty netter. But even then, right, this was just not a particularly inspired performance by either team. St. Louis definitely started to take over once they had to chase the outing, but it really didn't matter. The Jets were pretty much content to just sort of ride it out. I think everyone was tired. No one really seemed to be that desirous of the victory. But, the Jets played about, I would say, 30 minutes of solidish hockey and could kind of coast for the rest of it because St. Louis just really wasn't good. That's the sum total. And, in terms of the overall tank battle, does this game really move the needle? Not really. I mean, yes, the Jets have now slightly leapfrogged the Blues just because of the game in hand, but I don't think that anyone is under the illusion that this is a particularly different outlook and landscape with the victory, right? The Jets are still, eighth in the wild card race. They are technically, 9 points out or so, they are 7 points out of the second wild card spot, but, lots of teams to leapfrog. Things probably haven't changed too much. And I don't think that anyone is, I don't think anyone's really talking about the playoffs seriously. There are some talking heads that still think the Jets control their own destiny. Technically, that's true in some ways. It would have to have a much better turn in form, though, for Winnipeg to actually start to get back into this race and really be a playoff threat. And given what we've seen with this team, I would not put a lot of money in that. The Jets' schedule is about to get a lot harder once they hit the road. And I think that's where, you're really going to start to see perhaps some of the particular issues this team has had really show themselves. It's not been as much of an issue during their recent home games and stuff because a lot of the teams that they've played have kind of been messy situations themselves. LA is bad. New Jersey has kind of been a hot mess. Chicago has been all over the place. The Blues are terrible. They've really not had many quality opponents. Even Minnesota, who a lot of people were hailing as one of the top teams in the Central, has looked kind of like a shell of itself the past couple of games. They've won here and there. They've not been like completely unwatchable, but compared to the expectations of what I think a lot of people were thinking they would get with Hughes, it's been a little underwhelming, and not because Hughes has been underwhelming himself. He's been phenomenal, but the rest of the team has kind of taken a dump. So for the Jets, they are still roughly where they were before. Maybe they have that points percentage stuff, and that's their advantage, but we're all kind of in the same territory, right? Chicago, Calgary, Winnipeg, St. Louis, we're all hanging together. We're all having fun. We're all hoping, that a lottery ball or something special falls our way, maybe a crumb off the table that gives us a franchise player. But beyond that, we are all thinking about next season. I will say to all of these teams' credit, they don't quit. They don't play poorly. It is ethical tanking. And I think that is always commendable, right? People sometimes say that, the Jets are always triers, and that's true, right? This squad didn't quit. I thought the Blues looked like they quit for about half the game yesterday, but the Jets certainly just kind of did the necessary, and I think that was enough for them to see it through. So as we start to wind down towards the back half of this season, I'm curious to know what this Jets team really looks like. Winnipeg is certainly not that close to a playoff spot. They're also not fully out of it, but they have to gain so much ground against a lot of teams that, quite frankly, haven't really shown too many vulnerabilities in losing loads of games to put the Jets ahead of them. And that's a bit of a hill to climb, right? Winnipeg's not winning enough on their own. Their opponents are not losing enough as well. So the Jets are still roughly where they started. And I think that is, in one sense, disappointing for a lot of folks who were hoping for the season to go better. But as I've said repeatedly, by the end of this year, we may all be feeling a lot better about the Jets' future once we see what this lottery pick holds. Let's get through the next few weeks. Let's see where this team finishes. Obviously, the Olympics are coming up. That's going to be a huge, fun moment for a lot of folks. We still may see Mark Scheifele at some point get a nod for Team Canada. That is not technically out of the question. I think it's highly unlikely, but there's a chance. And with Scheifele continuing to score points and look like a great player, I just think it really reinforces the notion that Team Canada effed up, man. This guy should be a Team Canada player. I know why people are going to say he isn't. I'm sure that there's behind-the-scenes stuff that we're not going to be privy to, but it's really hard to look at one of the top scorers in hockey among all Canadian forwards and skaters and not think that he deserves to have his moment on Team Canada. But unfortunately, past perceptions, his own choices and stuff, they might be catching up a little bit. Let's just hope that in a few weeks we get to see him hoist, that trophy of some sort or a medal of some sort, and wear Team Canada's colors the way he's actually earned it this year. If nothing else, that would be really cool for him, Morrissey, Hellebuck, Connor, all those guys to go together, have a great time, and get away from the Jets for a little bit, coming back feeling refreshed for whatever the rest of this calendar year has to offer for Jets hockey. Curious to know what you thought of this Jets game, though. I was honestly a little bored by it, but you know what? It's okay. It doesn't have to be an exciting outing every night, and the Jets still came away with a victory. But let me know your thoughts about the game in the YouTube comment section below or at my social medias on Twitter. As we wrap up, I want to talk about the next few weeks of Jets hockey. As I was saying earlier, these next few stretches could be really pivotal for what the Jets do towards March. And I think this is going to be one of the most intriguing times and stretches for the Jets to decide if they're really trying to get back in this playoff race or if they see the tea leaves and start to prepare to sell. We'll chat about why coming right up. FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. You'll see a pack loaded with multiple boosts, and all you have to do is open it to get your game day boosts. You open it first thing on game day, you'll have a chance to juice the bets that you already like, whether it's QB play, some defensive moments, coaching, momentum swings, whatever it is you're into. FanDuel's profit boost packs help you make every play feel bigger. And, as somebody who was watching a lot of the Caleb Williams stuff, I thought maybe he was the guy to go to. That didn't pan out, but perhaps you're still a fan of the Rams and you think Stafford has one last legendary drive in him. Stick a profit boost on a bet around Stafford, and you could come away with a massive victory. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Hey friends, and welcome back to these closing thoughts on tonight's episode of Locked On Winnipeg Jets. Thanks for rejoining us as we're chatting a little bit about the upcoming next few weeks for the Jets. We are sort of winding down towards the end of the season. A little over 30 games left for Winnipeg. A lot of teams are starting their back half. We've got the Olympic break coming up in a few weeks. Really, just about a week and a half, 2 weeks left before they head to Milan for several weeks. And then we are without Jets hockey for a while, which I think some folks may not be too upset about. In between then, though, the Jets have They've got 7 games before then. And these 7 games have the potential to really decide which way the Jets go when they come back from the break. This is 14 points that could swing your entire season. And I think at this point, I know where I'm probably leaning with all of this. One of the things that's also true is that a lot of these games are going to be basically against the East. And some of these teams in the East have been struggling recently. Some of them have been doing very well. Up first, Winnipeg's going to have to go through the Panthers later this week. That's going to be an interesting one. Paul Maurice's Panthers have been a nightmare this year. And not in the good sense, right? They've just been almost unwatchably bad. Barkov out has completely collapsed this roster. They're looking for some kind of salvation of some sort. Strange to say about a team that is a 2-time Cup winner. They're also only 5 points out of the second wildcard spot. So, they do technically have the potential to make a postseason run at some point, but given where, a lot of the East is at this point, it's tight, right? 5 points when you have to get past the Caps, Flyers, and Leafs is not as easy as it sounds, right? Some of these teams are not doing super well, but the Panthers have also been dropping a load of results. So, they're in a very sensitive position. They're looking to try and win every single game they can, and I think they're going to come into Winnipeg feeling pretty pissed off. I think the stuff that maybe the Jets got away with against the Blues, you might not have as easy of a time doing that against the Panthers, who are going to have more considerable firepower. Not a great team, mind you, this year, but they've still got a winning record. They still have some really notable games where Bobrovsky can steal something, so don't count them out. Then you've got the Red Wings, who have really been on the ascendancy this year. I still don't know how much I truly believe in them as like a top-end team, but you know what? They're second in the Atlantic. I really can't give them any shade for that, especially for the last several years where they've really been considerably on the margins of the league. They've kind of been hovering closer to wild card territory, but usually had a falling out, couldn't quite close the gap. This year, they're firmly in a playoff position. They look like they're going to make it, and I'm sure their fans who have been long suffering since the Zetterberg and Datsuk days are just about ready for something of this actual group to give them a result, right? Andrew Kopp's been playing well. Dylan Larkin's still doing his thing. Raymond and company, Sider. There's a lot there that I think folks are really excited about, and rightfully so, right? In terms of, some of the other opponents the Jets will face, you've got New Jersey, Tampa, you've got the Panthers again, you've got Dallas, and then you have Montreal. So a lot of these teams are pretty much everyone's above 500 in terms of record, and that's not going to be easy for the Jets, right? The Lightning are probably one of the strongest teams in the East. They have their moments where they've gotten cooked on a few results, but they have one of the most positive goal differentials. It's going to be a road game. That's probably going to be one of the toughest games the Jets have to play during this stretch. And then the Jets are going to have to visit Dallas, which is going to be fascinating, right? The Stars have kind of been on a really down form recently, but again, kind of like a lot of these other teams, they've still got a positive goal differential. They're still a playoff squad, and they're still better than the Jets right now. So you really can't say that any of these games are super easy, super winnable. I guess if I have to pick one that I think the Jets probably have the best chance of coming away with a win in, it's the Devils game. New Jersey is towards the bottom of the East. It's for good reason. They're not a particularly strong squad. Winnipeg beat them not that long ago, and I wouldn't be shocked if the Jets do it again. It is a road game, so I don't want to say that it's an easy victory, but I do think that there's a better chance for the Jets to come away with at least a point. Montreal, that'll be the last game before the break, and that's going to be a hard one. Montreal has always given the Jets fits. They play up-tempo, they play fast. It's a home game for the Jets, but that doesn't mean that Montreal won't come out swinging. So this next 7-game stretch will probably decide if the Jets fall further in the playoff race or if they manage to swing themselves back in. I would say we'll know if they're going to be sellers, and they'll probably start to signal that. I know that they're already listening on some of the veteran players. There was a Pagnota quote coming back around from a couple of days ago, talking about how the Jets are listening on guys like Stanley, Nyquist, etc. But this stretch is probably the one that will seal a direction for the Jets. I expect by the end of it that we're probably looking at Winnipeg as sellers. I think they're not going to publicly say it, but I think that's where they're going to end up. I just think that this schedule doesn't have enough wins already lined up in it for Winnipeg to be at the point where they're talking about acquiring talent. They may still try and search for something. They may try to pick up maybe a reclamation project or something, but I just don't think that there's enough here for them to work with. And they don't have the assets to make a big play, right? There's no Kyrou coming. The best you could hope for is like a Kotkaniemi, and we all kind of know that Kotkaniemi has some reasons why he's on the outs and why the Jets or the Canes are trying to let him go to the Jets. So I would say, measure your expectations for the next few weeks. I think we are preparing for the inevitable outcome of the season. It's about time to start thinking about what the Jets' future looks like and, next season. But I guess we have 7 games to determine if the Jets are going to do it earlier or if they're going to wait all the way until, mid to late March before they make their final decision. Obviously, early March will be when the trade deadline is, and the Jets will have to figure out what they're doing in the summer towards the end of the season. So lots of stuff ahead of us. It's going to be an interesting next 2 weeks. Olympic hockey is right around the corner. We'll be talking about that. But for tonight's show, that's going to be all the time that we have. Like I mentioned earlier, tomorrow and of course on Friday, we're going to have some thoughts about some of the top draft picks in this upcoming NHL draft that Winnipeg might be in range for, especially if they finish towards the bottom 5 of the league. Check those episodes out. We'll see you then. Have a great night. And as always, go Jets go.